And I guess it's interesting to call it, for you, maybe web series, because you know, it's just videos, and for people...
I started off on basic cable, on cable access for my local hometown and stuff, and that was back when you had to use a VHS camcorder and actually physically take the tape and bring it to the town hall and put it in the VCR program so it would air on cable that night. So, yes, I come from...
I think you're dating yourself.
Right. I come from a background of TV, but I've always been involved with serialized content and stuff.
Yeah. So you're a big fan of the serialized content?
Absolutely. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of coming up with a new idea.
True, but I feel like you were doing web series on YouTube since the beginning, obviously. But web series on YouTube seems to be kind of like this new buzzword for this year, where everyone wants a series or wants a web series or wants some kind of serialized content. Why do you think now, compared to past 7 years on YouTube, all of a sudden everyone seems to be talking about web series, getting involved in web series, wanting to start a web series, that kind of thing?
That is a great question that I'm not sure I can answer, because like you said, from my standpoint, I've always recognized it as a really valuable tool for branding and for marketing and for audience cohesion, just to make sure they always know what's coming up because they know what to expect. They've seen episodes of it before. I think it's probably becoming more popular probably because of other people who have had success with it, and it seems like the same reason why reality TV became really popular in the early 2000s is that a couple of shows tried it, they were successful, and then everybody else looked around like, wow, they were able to do that. That doesn't seem that hard. They don't have to write for that. You don't have to come up with a new idea every week if you have a show.
It seems hard to figure out how we went from Real World to like Real Housewives and Jersey Shore, but somehow we got there in the whole reality TV realm.
It's a magical thing, reality TV.
Yeah. But Kat, I mean, why do you think that all of a sudden now web series is really coming into their own, and how do you view kind of the web series community in cohesion into YouTube? Because it seems like it used to be kind of the web TV community versus but web TV community and then kind of vlogger, and I feel like you would, maybe I'm wrong, would consider yourself more of like a vlogger and a gamer and things like that. So how do you view web series kind of coming into its own and working in cohesion inside of YouTube and inside of the already set up YouTube community?
I actually used to hate web series, and I was on the side of just anytime I saw something as a web series, I was just I'm not gonna watch it because it's I don't know, I just hated web series. I'm talking 4 years.
Vlogger bias.
Yeah, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, it was just anytime something was a web series, I would start I would happen to fall upon a video, and it'd be halfway through the season, and I'd be oh, and I have to go back, and I just didn't like it. And you would have to go off YouTube a lot of times to find web series and find the good ones, and I was just too lazy, and I didn't want to do that. I just wanted my subscriptions and stuff that I could just watch whenever I wanted at my leisure. But I feel now web series are becoming relevant again. I feel they kind of weren't relevant for a while, my opinion. And then
it seems like Felicia came out with the Guild, and everyone fell in love. And then we had a few years of none of it was existing on YouTube, and so no one cared. And now, do you see people caring again because?
I think people are caring again because a lot of YouTubers who've been around for a long time kind of found their success. They fell upon YouTube for whatever reason that they did. They started to do it really well and started to get success and started to do all this stuff. And then they realized wait, okay, where do we go from here? What's the next step? What's something new that I can do that could be interesting to my audience that I haven't done before? And it's okay, do I get a writer? And it's wait, why don't I just do a series? And I think I already have a fan base, or I already have an audience that's gonna watch this, and because they like me and they like what I've done in the past, I think they're probably gonna like this too, because you already know who they are, and you've kind of established yourself, so you're brave enough to kind of try something new because you have that trust with your audience. And at least for me, that's kind of where I was coming from, and I kind of saw that pattern with some other people that were starting to Mr. Retirement. He's starting his web series, and I was it was so different from what he normally does, but he'd already kind of established himself. He already got respect from his audience, and so they trusted him to do something different. And it's definitely a next step sort of thing, because I feel this is another thing. The lines are blurring between TV and YouTube and internet, and all that stuff is starting to blur and starting to become one entity on its own, kind of, or I feel that's where it's headed. And so if you're going to be trying to not reach the masses, but really kind of get a lot of people, I don't know, if you're going to be able to hold a lot of people's attention, it's TV's done really well because it's consistent, themed, You know, it's the same time, it's the same
Same time, day, every place.
Same writing, same, you know, same, like that stuff's done really well. And, you know, as those lines blur, it's like your internet shows or people online are wanting to kind of like mix in with that. And I don't know, I feel like web series are kind of like a very like in between sort of like vlogging and TV. And it's kind of like that.
Right. Do you think it's a kind of a maturing of the YouTube audience? And I don't know if I want to really use that word, but just kind of you know, it seems like all the what was popular on YouTube has changed over many years, but it's always kind of been comedy one-offs. It seems has been kind of the conventional wisdom. What's most popular on YouTube? Yeah. Do you see that changing to series? Do you think
I do see that changing to series. I mean, there's always going to be like the random people who are doing like really well with like what they've been doing for a long time, but it's like I feel like it is starting to change. Like the next step, the moving on, getting deeper into like the actual production and like all that stuff is like I don't know. I do see it.
Yeah, not that I mean, anything and everything lives on YouTube and has a space for it. Yeah. But it seems that all of a sudden, series is the shiny new toy, the new kid in school that everyone wants to.
It's fun. Like it's really fun, and like I think a lot of people on YouTube haven't really seen much of like the production side of things. It's like a lot of us have just done everything ourselves. It's like you shoot it, you edit it, you produce it, you're in it, like you do everything yourself. And then when you start working, like once you do one video where like someone else writes it for you and someone else edits it and someone else is a cameraman and like you're just like getting to like help with like little parts, and then you see like this beautiful product in the end, you're like, wow, why don't I do this all the time? And it's like, then you kind of like want to start a series. You're like, let's do this all the time. Or like you get inspired like seeing your friends do web series because you see how like it can be done. And I don't know, it's just like starting to spread. And I think it's really cool.
Yeah. And Matt, you obviously work with a lot of people at Revision 3 that do a ton of different series. Like, how do you help them? How do you encourage in your day-to-day work with Revision 3 and all of your partners, web series and making sure it's integrated into YouTube and not really, sometimes we have this like us versus them and web series versus whatever. Like, how do you make sure it's all kind of one cohesive experience?
Well, it's interesting because, to me there's serialized content and then there's web series. And web series is to me, that's a formatted show. Right. And serialized content, it could be anything, right? And genres have appeared on YouTube, and pretty much every genre and every audience exists, right? So what's interesting is that the economics are swinging back in video because, the price went down and it was much easier to make something, but now it's swinging back. And now you can actually support a higher production value, which is what evolves us to web series. Because you now have brands, and you have creators wanting to do it, and you have even YouTube wanting to change, their platform to make it more like TV. Take over the $40 billion worth of, my voice of advertising that's out there, that's on TV, that's available. So it's an evolution that we see. We see the medium maturing a lot from the financial side and also just from the creator side. And so what we like to do is to find people who we think have talent and also have interest in creating formatted shows that are like web series, and can integrate with something that is on our distribution platform, which is not just YouTube. It's actually 40 other partners we distribute to, that can reach an audience in a formatted way that is somewhat regular. It's somewhat like what your experience with TV watching is like. Right. Because that's where you can access the money to support the shows that you want to make. Right. As opposed to just doing it entirely on your own with a camera and a tripod in your basement.
That's actually what I do.
I did that for a really long time. Not even joking.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually amazing because that's how you get out there and get access to your audience. We talked about this already.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely. There's. I think the overarching point is that you can do anything on YouTube. One of the things you can do is web series. So what do you think, is best practices for making a web series? Because I mean, how many people with the partners that you work with the clients you work with, how many people are behind the web series? Because most as a YouTuber are just me, myself, and I like have friends I collab with, but it's mainly just me. But when you're talking about web series, you're talking about a lot more people than that.
Right. I think. A lot of times right now, the phase that we're in now, it's branded entertainment because you're bringing brands into your production process, and so you end up doing something that fits into what they're doing. And that has a shelf life because they have campaigns and money runs out.
Right.
So, you know, if you're not doing branded entertainment, which you don't have to do, then you have to do the traditional route of just finding an audience by just doing it, and then creating a format that works. And if you're happy with that format, and you want to continue producing it, then continue producing it.
Right.
Because now you have that audience, and you don't have to worry about bringing a brand into the mix.
Right.
But you're going to be limited by the economics of what the partner program allows you to do,
Right.
in terms of what you can get back from that. And that's changing, that's evolving, it's getting bigger. You know, bigger checks are coming every year to people who are doing well on YouTube.
And you made a point about something of, you know, that you see a difference between web series and serialized content. John and Kat, do you see that as well?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I guess we should at some point kind of lay out the definition for both. I have a tendency to do more of the formatted, what were the two terms you used?
Web series and serialized content.
Yes, I would fall more into the web series, I think, whereas serialized content is where you have one story that continues from week to week to week, with perhaps, it's not always nonfiction, but with writing and characters and story arcs. Whereas what I do is like a very formatted web show,
right,
where I have the same exact theme and the same costumes or whatever week to week to week. But there's not necessarily a story or a theme that continues from episode 1 to episode 20.
Okay,
I would even lump serialized content, I would put into that bucket also just content that is regularly produced. And that can be vlogs, that can be, it doesn't have to have a narrative arc. And right on YouTube, you can find audiences without having to do a full production lift. Yes. You know what I mean?
So do you think then that web series is kind of the logical conclusion of, you know, kind of YouTube best practices of, you know, when you're making content, you know, focus on great content, but make sure you're uploading it, you know, at the same time or the same day every week, and so your audience knows when to expect it. And so this kind of, I guess, serialization of, you know, because everyone used to post on YouTube, you know, infrequently, or, you know, you never knew which day, and so then everyone kind of moved into, I'm going to pick a day and stick to it, and that's when I'm going to do it. And do you think that that is why web series is kind of now more appealing to YouTubers, because we've had a few years of people becoming accustomed and expecting and being almost trained, I guess, that, you know, I want to...
Yeah, I think we have trained the audience, and they're ready for it, right? And we're already used to it, because that's already how big media distributes content to us already. And also, we're humans, and we like to tell stories to each other and listen to stories.
True. And so what are some of your favorite web series?
I am a big fan of YouTube Daily News with Will.
He's lying.
I'm lying, and you know I'm not, because I comment on every video you post. I love the YouTube gossip. Of course, I think it's tough to avoid equals 3 because it's on the homepage every day. I pretty much watch
So is that what equals 3?
I'm kind of confused. Like, are we saying web series like a series of videos that you post on the web, or are we talking like stuff that has writing of like a story? Sorry, I'm getting confused.
Yeah, I think you can actually start speaking to this on you know, because the panel is about web series. You know, so is web series just like, you know, The Guild and you know, Once Upon a Time and these things, or is it, you know, YouTube News equals 3, Ask IJ, like, you know, those kinds of things?
Those are web series. I always just pictured web series like the theme of like there's a story and there's a show, and it's like, whether it's like comedy, but it's like there's writing, there's characters, and there's acting.
Right.
Like that's what I picture like a web series like. But I guess if you think about it, like web series could be like.
Well, web series could be anything. That's more of a
I guess it's
a old-fashioned kind of traditional serialized narrative.
But I feel like that's coming back. Like that's what I feel like is coming back. Okay.
It should be really fun.
So what are some of your favorite web series then that, you know, are doing well that follow that format?
If I say hooking up, does anybody get that?
See,
no
hands.
Because the writer
No
of
hands.
that is writing my web series right now.
Hooking up was fun for everyone that was on. I enjoyed that.
It was really bad.
But Kat,
I'm not gonna lie, I don't really watch any web series. I still don't watch them. Like
You appreciate it.
like now that I've like started working on one, like I can appreciate them, but like I still haven't found one that I'm like, wow, this is awesome. I'm gonna watch it all the time.
so then what made you want to start working on a web series?
So I was like, I want to make one that's good and that people are gonna want to watch.
You watch it.
It's not like done yet or anything, but we're like still like in production and writing and stuff like that.
So big goose egg for Cat's College.
So,
I'm just saying, like, I just, and I also haven't been exposed to them. Like, it's not, I don't even know where to find web series. And like, like when Mr. Guitarman did one, like, I watched his and it was really good. But like, other than, like, if a YouTuber that I watch isn't doing one, then like, I don't know how to find it, you know?
No, I think that's a good point. I think that's can be integral. I mean, I guess the question is that integral then in whether web series succeeds or not is how it's being distributed on YouTube, because you just said you have no idea how to find it.
Like,
so.
okay, because like I feel like there's hardly any web series like that, like on YouTube. Like they're not posted on YouTube. When it's like there's a brand, or when there's like it's on someone's like blog or like some website that already exists, it's like so hard to find that. Like, I don't know, Discovery's on YouTube, and like if you don't put your web series on YouTube, like people aren't gonna watch it. Well,
Right.
like a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, there are like special cases, but like I feel like in general, it's like
Yeah,
harder to get an audience when you're just like a standalone site.
Right.
And
And Matt, you're very much, I think, on the distribution side of things. Like, and definitely, I mean, how difficult is it to distribute web series content?
It's hard. Yeah, it is. It's absolutely hard, especially if it comes with, like you said, a brand, and there's some requirements there for views and whatever. And then there's, lots of ways that people cheat to get those views. But it is hard.
Yeah.
And you have to use YouTube. So you also have to change the dialogue with the brand. You have to say it's not about views. It's about either a conversion or it's about some different type of awareness that you can integrate into your. Yeah. But I wanted to also add. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Guild, but also I'm watching Glove and Boots right now too, which I love.
Yeah.
But I'll have to check it out if it's good.
Yeah.
If it's good.
Also, Kat, I want to go back. So you're working on a web series right now. Give me kind of an inside scoop. Like, what is it about? How is the whole experience in kind of being vlogger gamer and then working with a bunch of other people?
Yeah, we shot the pilot already, and like we haven't really like moved forward much from that because, like, to be honest, we got like slammed busy with a bunch of other projects. But like we still want to do it. We're still going to finish it. It's with my roommate and I, and we're basically it's made for like our target audience that we already have, which is like 13 to 17-year-old females. And we're making this web series. It's called Quality Time, and it's like kind of a cheesy title, like we did that on purpose. I'm really bad at explaining things, so it's basically like a behind-the-scenes look of like what it's like to be a YouTuber, but like kind of like over-dramatized. Like working with other YouTubers, working with brands. Like it's the idea is like like on 30 Rock or whatever. It's like behind the scenes of like television and like production and all that stuff.
So you're going to be the 30 Rock of YouTube?
I wish. But like, I mean, it's kind of that idea of just like silly things that go on behind YouTube scenes that people just don't know about, and what it's like living with a YouTuber, and just like the weird lives we have, and like.
Because they are pretty weird.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and people don't know much about it, so it's just kind of like non-reality reality, I guess.
And
but
so you're scripting.
Scripted reality. Yeah, it's scripted. It's definitely scripted. We have a writer. When we shot the pilot, it was crazy because it just took so many people, took a lot of money, and like all this stuff. And I'm like, I've never paid to make a YouTube video. I just like talk to my camera. Like, this is weird. Like, I need thousands of dollars to do this. Why? And like, it was like so weird.
Is that what's really limiting you? Web series on YouTube, is that we still are kind of in a infancy stage of monetization on YouTube where it's like I have to pay money to create something.
Is it worth doing this? Like, am I going to get my money back?
It's difficult, especially on YouTube, to calculate the return on investment on any project. I would love to get a bunch of actors together and sets and costumes and script out like a 12-episode arc about whatever. But that's the kind of thing that if I drew it up on paper and budgeted, I'd be at like $100,000.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's great, but there's no way that I'm going to get that return on 12 videos.
That's why you get a brand to do it for you.
So you're not. That's right. You're not going to get it through the partner program, but that is the range. It's like 3 to 5. I worked at Crackle. I was executive producer, helped build their digital, and back then we were $500 a video. That was 2 years ago. Now we're up to 3 to 5K per video for a series that you can support, right?
I could work with a budget like that.
Yeah.
Whereas right now, it's just, I can only budget what I know the video will probably bring in.
Right.
Which is rarely that high.
We did a Kickstarter for our pilot.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Really? So
Kickstarter is really interesting. How much
I don't even remember. I think we raised like between $3,500 and $4,000 for it, just for the pilot.
Which is perfect to get that one done. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's so interesting because Freddie Wong, he did Kickstarter.
He raised
For
like
those
$1
that don't know, he raised how much money? $120,000 on Kickstarter for his video game high school web series, which coming out soon. I don't remember when the release date is.
I think so.
Yeah.
Like, people think that's like an outrageous number because they've never done anything like this before, but like it's totally
he basically made a
legit.
feature film, splitting it up into 9 parts, whatever it is.
Right. So do you?
That's a pretty modest budget for a feature film.
And you know, while Freddie Wong is at the top of his game on YouTube and everything, there is definitely a trickle down effect. I mean, do you see YouTubers using Kickstarter more, not just for, I have this really special, awesome project that I'm specifically creating this for, or is Kickstarter going to kind of be almost a new revenue stream of, I have all these different video projects and, you'll be in the credits for it. I mean, where do you see Kickstarter really coming in to influence YouTube?
Well, I think Freddie and Brandon are going to be the tentpole to see how this actually plays out, because if Video Game High School is as successful as I think
we all hope it to be.
We all hope it to be. I think it's going to be a big precedent that they were able to do this. I mean, obviously they have a much larger audience than mostly anybody to leverage, but they were able to start using Kickstarter and fund their entire show, and hopefully it'll pay it back and pay it forward to all their audience members, and will be a good guide for everybody else to copy.
In a year or two, will YouTube channels be funded almost exclusively through Kickstarter? Will people no?
I hope not. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it.
I mean, people will still use it, but I don't think it's going to be like an exclusive, like everyone uses Kickstarter, because people are going to get pissed off eventually if you like, every week you're like, I need $5,000 for this week's episode. Like, people are just going to be like, okay.
YouTube kind of, and no offense to any street performers here, but YouTube then kind of is demoted to a level of street performer where it's, hey, you just saw my video, do you mind donating $20? It's kind of like a bit of panhandling there.
This is true.
I don't see it transitioning all the way to that, but for larger projects and for startups, people who want to do a big new project, I think Kickstarter is going to be a really invaluable tool to do that.
And
like, you don't see like movies or like TV people like asking their audience to like pay, and like even though it's not the same thing, like we have the ability to do things like a Kickstarter, and that's like a new sort of thing. Like, I don't think it's going to be something that's like the major funding of like all these shows people are going to start doing.
right.
Like,
And Matt, with the clients that you use, how does Kickstarter influence them, if at all?
Well,
How does Revision 3, I guess, want to use Kickstarter?
We're actually using it on a project coming up, which is going to be pretty exciting, I think, because I think we're going to see that same type of response, that Freddie got, that Zay just got.
Yeah, Zay Frank, how much money did he raise for it to come back?
Well, he only asked for 50, but I think it went over yet close to 100 now. He didn't really need it. He was just doing it to use the social features that Kickstarter gives you, which is once you get all those people in, then you can include them in the process. And
right.
You can talk to them, and you can send them special stuff and everything else, and he likes that, talking to his audience. So we're going to use it. I mean, I think it's really fascinating because, and I don't know the answer to the question that you asked earlier, not the question you just asked me, of is it going to be part of it, the funding process moving forward? Because again, we are in this fluid phase of everything changing. Pendulums are swinging back and forth all the time in media, and there's still a constant of funding being needed for any project, right? Whether it's your own time because you're doing it on your own in your basement, or you're going to do something that's more high production value and you're going to hire people and everything else. So where does that funding come from? Traditionally, it's always come from the big media industry, and that they're scared because the old guys, they're scared and it's changing, and they're losing that control. Is crowdsourced funding going to fund everything? No, I don't think so. And I also think that on the same side, on the front end, when you put those pieces together to fund your project, then once your project goes out, you have to put the pieces together to recoup it.
Yeah.
And it's not just YouTube. It's going to be, he'll probably do a DVD, and he'll do probably a licensing deal down the road for it, and all that sort. And he'll get extra revenue streams, and he'll be his own mini studio.
Yeah. Very cool. So before we wrap up, does anyone have any questions? Sorry. That was awkward, right?
So you talk about an evolution of content, and a type of evolution that sounds a lot like TV content. But if this content is evolving into TV, I personally don't consider that much of an evolution, but more the evolution. I mean, I know I don't watch TV. So I guess in this evolution of content, I would ask what will be different from TV?
Well, you can still interact with your audience. You can still have annotations.
Yeah,
you can have pick your own path adventure series. I mean, picture The Simpsons, where you can actually choose your own ending for each episode. That's the kind of difference we can have in new media is the immediate interaction with our audiences. while the stories and the narratives and the presentation may be a lot more similar going forward to old media, I think ultimately it's going to be the audience and the interaction process that really dictates that this is different, this is new, and hopefully ultimately better than the old stuff.
I wouldn't say it's like an evolution of like internet to TV. I just see like the lines are blurring as far as like, you know, the type of like similar, I don't know, it's like the type of content is changing, but like, you know, YouTube and like internet stuff is like always going to be like user produced content, or like a person like producing something and that's like doing it on their own, that's not like this big television company that's like producing this show, that's like not thinking of like their particular audience that they already have a connection with, you know. It's like, I don't know, it's like very personal, like the internet's more personal, like that's, I don't know, I see it that way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the comment section and things like that are not going anywhere. I think that web series will rely very heavily on audience engagement and interaction, and that's really, I think, what will set it apart from television.
Is it possible that, say, you have a relationship with, say, Kraft, and they'll come to you and say, we have $50,000, we need, you know, 4 episodes, you know, of a cooking show that uses Kraft? Is that starting to happen? In which case, if it is, will you then extend that opportunity to producers to produce for that specific brand and then mediate that?
The short answer is yes. You know, we tend to, so it's been interesting because brands have traditionally not put money up front for web series or production, but they're starting to. I think it's partly a laziness thing on their part. It's easy to go to the TV guys and spend $1 million and do a media buy, and that's it, right? And then you can go home and be like, I did my job. And Nielsen numbers come back and they're like, yeah, you got all the impressions you wanted. So, and it's not true. But that's easy for those guys to do that. And they don't want to do the work, which is to actually get impressions and actually get views and actually get engagement, which is what you do online. So, but that's changing and they're learning, and that's part of what we do is we have to educate them. And they're starting to put that money up for stuff. Yes?
So are you looking for producers that you could be aligned with that could produce that content for you that aren't necessarily known?
Yeah, we look for both. Yeah, both creators, producers with audience, and creators, producers with, you know, talent.
That's a good way of putting it.
All right, well, I hate to wrap this one up, but we got another one to move on to, so if I can get a big round of applause for John, Kat, and Matt, thank you so much.